chapter 46 at the end. Okay? So let's say a prayer, and then we'll get started. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for a chance to gather around your word. We ask that you use this time and use your word to allow us to see you and how you work in the world in a different way. All these things we ask in the precious name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, so I want to read you a quote from one of the commentaries that I read for Genesis chapter 45. And I think that it's going to kind of set the tone for what we're about to read. Okay? So he says, one of the challenging aspects of the Joseph cycle is the way that the hand of God is discerned, not so much in supernatural acts like in signs and wonders, but in extraordinary timings of ordinary events. For many of us, God discloses himself and his will as much in the coincidence as in the miracle, as much in retrospect as in prospect. Faith can be hard going under these circumstances. It would, we suppose, be so much easier, especially for a church facing decline or disunity, for God to make his will and purpose known in prospect and not retrospect, and in signs and wonders, not through ordinary life. So in other words, when you're going through the hard times, we would prefer that God just tell us exactly what to do instead of us having to reflect on it and think about what God has done in our life, right? And I think that that is really true when we think about what is going on with Joseph's life and now when he is going to provide for his brothers and for his father. Okay? So, chapter 45. Then Joseph could not control himself before, well, okay, let's read the last paragraph of the last chapter. So, chapter 44, verse 30. Now, therefore, as soon as I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, then as his life is bound up in the boy's life, as soon as he sees that the boy is not with us, he will die. And your servants will bring down the gray hairs of your servant, our father, with sorrow to Sheol. So this is Judah speaking, making his plea. Okay? For your servant became a pledge of safety for the boy to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father all my life. Now, therefore, please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a servant to my lord, and let the boy go back with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? I fear to see the evil that would find my father. Chapter 45. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. He cried, make everyone go out from me. So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, so that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? But the brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence. Okay? So, why are you laughing?
Well, you know, it's like they've met with him a couple times now. They never figured out that that's their brother.
No, because of the dress and the language and the probably the makeup.
Probably a beard.
Probably a lack of beard. Okay, so the Israelite brothers would have. It's common for the Israelites to have beards. It was not common for the Egyptians to have beards. They would have shaved. Okay. So that's why when you see the Pharaoh, he just has the hair from his chin down, right, and nowhere else on his face, because it wasn't common for them. They wanted to be hairless. Okay. What would be a reason why, especially the Pharaoh, would want to be hairless? It sets them apart from, okay, that's really good. What would be another option?
That headdress thing.
The headdress, it would fit better maybe, okay?
Might feel better.
Think about what, how the Egyptians thought about their Pharaoh. What did they think?
He's God.
That he's a god. So how would hair make you feel or make you seem like you're not a god?
Constantly have to
washing,
Shaving, everything.
what else?
You look like everybody else.
What does hair do?
Turns gray.
It turns gray, which means
He's not forever.
you're not forever, you're getting older, you're gonna die, right? So for the Pharaoh, it's actually better for him not to have any hair so that he appears to be youth-like and younger and therefore a god. Although they all die and no one really cared about that, but that's kind of how it was. So, okay, so chances are the brothers aren't going to figure this out by themselves. Okay, what else?
Well, the brothers think he's dead.
Well, the brothers assume that he's dead, right? Or at least that he was sold into slavery. They don't assume that he's going to be sitting on a throne in Egypt.
Well, he's in a power position.
A position of power in Egypt, right? What else?
I think they were scared once they realized who he was.
So it says that he was that they were dismayed, right? If we talk about that a little bit, what would that mean that they're dismayed?
A little bit of shock, and now the hammer's gonna come down because he's in power.
So you get the shock, and then you also get the awe, right?
And then it's the owl.
And then it's the owl because they're afraid of getting retribution for what they did to him. Okay, good. I think that we could also say maybe that Joseph's brothers, and when I say this, I'm not demeaning what happened to Joseph at all, but I'm saying that shock for the brothers would have been like a little bit of a trauma, right? Like it's so much cognitive dissonance that they wouldn't be able to even talk to him, okay? And that's what it says, that they weren't even able to speak. They weren't even able to answer him. Have you ever gotten that news that is so shocking to you that you can't even talk, right? You can't even think. You're just like, how is this even happening, right? What else in this section, this paragraph?
Well, and weeping.
We got a lot of weeping, and it's really strong weeping,
Everybody heard it.
so that everybody heard it. How does that make you feel about your leader?
That he's weak.
That he's weak? Maybe they question Joseph a little bit more after that?
It shows the close relationship with Joseph and the Pharaoh because their households are right together. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they don't even have separate,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a palace or wherever they were living, but their living quarters were right next to each other so that they could overhear.
Well, and you think about Pharaoh's house, Pharaoh's palace,
Mhm.
right? It's probably not going to be a small area.
Right.
It's probably going to be pretty large. And have any of you ever been to Egypt? Have you ever, what do you see when you see documentaries about Egypt? What do you notice about the architecture?
All the stone.
It's all stone and it's all really grand. It's all really big, right? Like the palaces and everything, they just tower over everything else. Okay? So if you are crying really loudly in a big space, you're gonna get a lot of echo that's gonna echo and echo and echo. Right? And so even though the palace had to have been enormous, I think I understand why everyone would have heard the weeping. And it says a great cry, right? Like a great, strong weeping. So this isn't just like but like more of what we consider Old Testament lament. Like, that kind of thing, which would have echoed, right? So, Yeah, I don't know, the Bible doesn't say if Joseph had any, like, retribution from the Pharaoh or from anyone else in his household, like, he had to reassert his power or something, that they thought that he was weak.
I think that if the Pharaoh knew that Joseph already gave him grain for free twice, that he would not be happy.
Yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that Joseph had enough money that he could have just paid for it.
He could have paid for it,
you know,
sure.
Like,
But
you know, I don't know.
My guess is he didn't.
Yeah. I mean, verse 3 is really the climax of the entire Joseph cycle. Okay? So from chapter 37 to 49, when Jacob dies, chapter 45, verse 3 is the high point. Okay? Because we've been building this up for weeks and weeks and weeks. Okay, is he going to tell him? Is he not going to tell him? Is he going to give him the grain? Is he going to deceive him? How many times is he going to deceive him? This, that, and the other thing. And now we have, I am Joseph. This is how it is. And what's kind of odd when you're reading the story is that they can't answer, right? We know this emotionally, that it can be trauma response, but really you expect them to at least say something based off of all of the weeks that we've had building up to this.
But what they have gone through, they have to process the fact that this guy that has been threatening them and sending them back and putting money back in and doing all these things to them, manipulating them, is all of a sudden revealed as their brother.
Right.
And so how would you, in that moment, how would you even process all of that? I mean, I could see why they would be hard for them to express anything at that point.
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
Now think about this in terms of the larger scope of Genesis, right? What do we know about Jacob? Jacob is the ultimate deceiver. We have multiple times between him and Laban going back and forth. And then we have Jacob's sons selling Joseph into slavery, deceiving their father. Joseph then meeting his brothers in Egypt and deceiving them multiple times with the grain and the cup and this, that, and the other thing. And now, all of a sudden in this climax scene, we have, instead of another deception, we have the truth that kind of breaks this all down, where traditionally we would expect another deception. And now we have a break in the story. The climax is, instead of another deception, we actually have the truth being spoken when we're not used to hearing that ever since chapter 31. Okay? Good. All right, ready to move on? Okay, verse 4 through 15. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near. And he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me a lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, and you and your children and your children's children, and your flocks and your herds and all that you have. There I will provide for you, and there are yet 5 years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have do not come to poverty. And now your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see, that it is my mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father of all my honor in Egypt and all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here." Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all of his brothers and wept upon them. After that, his brothers talked with him.
At this point, he's speaking to them in their own language.
Mm-hmm.
No interpreter.
Yeah. And I think,
You're seeing me telling you, so.
and I think that is dramatic in verse 1, when he says, "Make everyone go out from me," so no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. So I would assume that would have been said in Egyptian, right? "Make everyone go out from me." And then all of a sudden, when he says, "I am Joseph," it's in Hebrew.
There's the shock.
And there's more of the shock and awe, because this is their native tongue. That they don't expect this Egyptian lord to know. Okay? And so then he goes into all of this, all in their native language. Directly. Right? Which, you're right, adds to the drama of it. Okay? What do you think? I mean, there's a lot of theology in this paragraph.
Joseph is basically showing his faith, his trust in God, and basically he saw it that, yeah, he was sold into slavery, but still part of God's plan, and I'm here for a reason. That reason is to save a remnant of his people.
Well,
Provide
right.
for them, take care of them, and so it's basically, you actually did this, but it's sort of not your fault.
So let's go to the practical theology of this first. Usually I try to end with practical, but this case I think it might be best to start that way. Okay? Have you ever had a time in your life where something really bad happened, and yet you saw God work through it? I would hope the answer for all of us is yes. Okay? Normally, we don't respond with, "Well, God did that." Normally, we would respond with, "God used that bad thing to make something good happen." Joseph's going one step further and says, "It's not you who sold me into slavery, it is God who sold me into slavery." That's really powerful. And if you were to come to me in my office and say, "I think God did this really bad thing to me so that he could do something else good," I would probably steer you away from that and say, sin is always bad, God is always good, so God is going to use a bad thing for the good. But that's not what Joseph's saying. Joseph's saying that God did a bad thing to him so that good can come from it. So Joseph is going stronger than what we would normally interpret it.
God might have let a bad thing happen.
Right,
because that was part of
that's what
his
he's
plan.
saying. God let this happen.
He wouldn't
Right.
have, he wouldn't have orchestrated
Right,
that.
right,
I
yeah.
believe he don't.
But that's some pretty strong theology there.
Yeah.
And that's theology that we maybe would prefer to avoid. Right? Because we don't prefer to dwell on the bad things that have happened in our lives. But it might be helpful for us to think about how God used those things to bring about a better situation. In this case, it was better that Joseph was sold into slavery so that the remnant of Jacob's sons could be saved from the famine. Okay? Now, that word remnant, this is the first time it's used in the Bible, that is going to become hyper important in the later prophets. Okay? Do any of you know why? You're basically going over Old Testament history at that point. Do you want me to go over that? That'd be helpful? Okay, so if you do Old Testament history, you kind of break it down into the different sections of the Old Testament. Okay, so we've got the Pentateuch, which is what? The first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, also called the Torah, also called the books of Moses. Okay? After the Pentateuch, we have the history books, which are Joshua through Esther. Okay? And then we have the poetry books, which don't really count. Job through Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Songs, Job through Song of Solomon. Also called Song of Songs, it doesn't matter how you do that. And then you have the prophets. You've got the major, and then you have the minor. How many minor are there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
12. How many major are there?
4,
5.
5.
Good job. I'm proud of you for remembering that.
Well, thank you. If you break it down, 5, 12, 5, 5, 12.
Oh,
Oh.
hey-o. 5, 12, 5, 5.
12.
Whoa. Don't start me. Okay, so so with the Pentateuch, we're looking at Genesis, which is like the beginning, right? And then we're trying to get to the Promised Land, which happens in the very last chapter of Deuteronomy, that they can finally see the Promised Land, and in Joshua they're going to go enter it, okay? And then with the prophets, who are the major prophets?
Isaiah, Jeremiah,
Isaiah,
Lamentations, Ezekiel,
Jeremiah.
Lamentations,
Lamentations is a small book,
Ezekiel,
and we think that Jeremiah wrote it. Okay, so even though it's a really short book, it's considered part of the major prophets because Jeremiah wrote it. Okay, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. Okay, it's easiest to see the remnant in Isaiah and Jeremiah. Remnant, what does remnant mean? When you're talking about sowing, what does a remnant mean? It's the it's the small little part that gets ripped off, right? So I mean, I guess rip off, you could put, I would say more of like the small extra piece, right? So the remnant of Israel happens because when we have Israel, how do you draw Israel? Big J,
Little circle.
little circle, squiggly line, bigger oval.
Yep.
Okay? So when you have Israel, it's divided up into the northern and southern kingdom. Northern kingdom, southern kingdom. Okay? The northern kingdom gets exiled to Assyria. And they're basically not really heard of again. They kind of get absorbed. Okay? And then southern kingdom gets exiled to Babylon. And that's where Daniel is. The book of Daniel starts in Babylon. Okay? And so, in the southern kingdom, in Judah, there is a small group of people that are left over in Babylon that don't give in to all of the Babylonian gods, the Babylonian culture. They stay true and faithful to Yahweh, to their God. They're really, really good Jews. Okay? And that part, that remnant, these few small people end up going back and rebuilding Jerusalem after it was destroyed in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. So this remnant actually goes back and wants to restart their religion, their culture, their way of life. And they do a little bit. The only thing that's left of the temple in Jerusalem is, well, not the Great Wall.
Not the Great Wall.
That's in China.
Wailing Wall.
The Wailing Wall.
Wailing
The
Wall.
only thing left of Solomon's temple is this Wailing Wall, and it's called Wailing because they cry that this wall is the only thing left of the grandeur of Solomon's temple. Okay? So Ezra builds the city, Nehemiah builds the wall around the city. That's the best way to keep that straight in your head. Okay? So this first use of remnant that actually becomes a huge, huge key theme later on in the Old Testament happens in this first book here in Genesis when Joseph is saying, no, actually, God is at work here, everything is okay. Which is also true for the remnant coming back from Babylon to go back to the southern kingdom. Okay? So if you are reading your Bible and you are reading one of the major prophets, it happens a lot in the minor prophets. The minor prophets have their own little take on things, which I actually find really interesting. When you're reading these major prophets, that's what they're going to be talking about. The loss of Jerusalem, the loss of their identity, the loss of the people's faith in God, turning to other gods, turning to other cultures, not listening to the way that God has told them to live their lives. And instead, there's only just this few remnant of people that actually are remaining true. Okay? You guys got it good? So that's a really good word. It's a really key theme to the entirety of the Old Testament. Okay? Good. What else in this section? Too bad Kathy's not here. I forgot to give her her gold star last night.
Why would you say he is a father to Pharaoh?
Don't you think that's weird? What could that possibly mean? Pharaoh is probably older than Joseph. So why would Joseph say that he's a father too? What verse is that in? 8.
Because of the authority that Pharaoh gave him?
It could be the authority that Pharaoh gave him over the land of Egypt. Okay? What would be another, that's completely correct. Okay, 100% correct. What would be another interpretation that could also be correct?
A father gives direction and good advice and tries to, help his children.
I'll add to your answer, which is also 100% correct.
Okay.
A father provides for his children, right?
Well, leadership.
And leadership, right? And all of these things are things that Joseph has done for Pharaoh, but also for Egypt, also for his own father, also for his brothers. All by the grace of God. Hallelujah. Amen. Okay? Good. What else?
I like the last line of that paragraph. After that, his brothers talked with him. They finally
summoned up the
voices
courage. Yeah,
after
yeah.
all of that.
That's good. And it just kind of reminds me, I think it was 2 chapters ago, where they're all eating, right? And I think it's like the last line of chapter 43. Portions were taken from them from Joseph's table, and Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as theirs, and they drank and were merry with him. Right? Like it's just this like aside
Yeah.
to just end the thought.
Mhm.
Right? Good. Do we think it's odd that Joseph's talking about his own honor? That doesn't really seem like a Christian theme.
Well, he boasted as a young man,
Mm.
and he had his coat of many colors, which separated him from the
Mhm.
rest. And he told his brothers, you will bow to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was fulfilling his dream.
So it's fulfilling his dream, but also he's changed, obviously, by telling the truth instead of deceiving again. But maybe there's just these little glimpses of the personality yet that are still in there. One of my favorite songs of all time, you can look it up if you want. It's in French, so you don't really have to. It's entitled On ne change pas, which means people don't change. And it just talks about how like things stay the same from year to year, and people, just kind of go through it, right? And so we know that people change, but they change like usually micro changes, right? But those elements of our temperament and our personality usually don't change.
It's the roller coaster of all of the people we've studied so far.
Right.
They have their high points, their low points, and people can change, but you can backslide too.
You can backslide too, and we all
And then
do.
go back and say,
And we
"Oh,
all
I should
do.
have done that." Yeah.
All the time, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I just always, it always sounds when I read this section that, Joseph had this really great moment of saying, no, I am Joseph. Like he's weeping, he loves them, he's showing them all of this stuff, and he's like, well, tell my dad about all my honor. It never really hits me the right
Well, I
way.
didn't say, my dream came true.
I
think it really rubbed it in.
I think it's a whole lot of boasting, he's just confirming what was.
That's another way to interpret it. That he's just being honest, right?
Yep.
Tell my dad that I've got all this power so that I can actually protect you from the famine, right?
Well, he proved he wasn't gonna do anything, or because he had a chance, twice,
Yeah.
so.
What do you mean?
Well, he had the chance, he could have just put him in prison there if
Oh, right.
he wanted to.
Right. Instead, he played games with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I really like verse 5 a lot. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because God sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. What does that tell us about God?
In control, got a plan.
Control, and what else? What's the purpose?
Save you.
To save you and that you live. And I think that that's a pretty large theme in the book of Genesis, right? We have, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and he made life. And we introduced death into the equation in Genesis chapter 3. And ever since then, we have death after death after death, right? And he begot, and he died, and he lived this many years, died. And yet, we still have God preserving the life of his people in and amongst all of this death. So, one of the main motifs or themes that you can delineate through the book of Genesis, and now that we're getting to the end, we can start kind of making these larger connections, is that the whole theme of the book is life versus death. Right? Casting out of the garden. Well, it seems like a really bad thing, but God is trying to keep Adam and Eve from eating from the tree of life while they're sinful, right? Because he wants them to keep them alive for eternity instead of just on the earth, right? So this is a key theme. You can do the death of Isaac, right? He's going to kill him with the knife. It's suspended in the air. And God says, whoa, wait. There's a ram over here. Do that one instead. I want to preserve this boy's life. Right? So right at the moment where you think it's going to be death, God kicks that out and gives us life instead. Okay? Good. Again, we have very physical instances in this chapter of weeping upon the neck, hanging off of the neck. Okay? The neck is actually plural in Hebrew. We don't have necks. So the best way that scholars have described that is that the neck actually extends into your back and includes your shoulders. So he's hanging on their shoulders, weeping, right? It's just like this really powerful image that you get, that he goes through each one of his brothers, the ones that sold him. Okay? Good. Verse 16. When the report was heard in Pharaoh's house, Joseph's brothers have come, it pleased Pharaoh and his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this. Load your beasts and go back to the land of Canaan, and take your father and your household and come to me. And I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you shall eat the fat of the land. And you, Joseph, are commanded to say, do this. Take wagons from the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. Have no concern for your goods, for the best of all of the land of Egypt is yours. I like that, right? Pharaoh's going to help God's people out. This is going to change in a couple chapters in Exodus chapter 1. Okay? Do you want to eat the fat? Why not?
Literally, that's where the flavor is.
What?
That's where the flavor is.
That's where the flavor is. Oh my gosh. What's that lady with the cooking show that's really fancy all the time? You know what? Oh, that would apply, but I'm thinking of the other
The
one.
older one, Julia Child?
Oh, I'm not going back that far. I was
Sorry, before you were born.
Paula Dean.
not Paula Dean, although she would also apply.
Yeah, it's all butter.
Barefoot Contessa.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard of her? Right? She's always talking about amping up the flavor, turning the volume up. And the way you do that is by adding fat to it, because you're right, that's where the flavor is, okay? And so in verse 18, eating the fat of the land is a good thing, even though it sounds like maybe it doesn't sound that great because of what our government told us in the 70s and 80s, that fat is the enemy, right? Okay, good. All right, verse 21 through 24. And the sons of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons according to the command of Pharaoh, and gave them provisions for the journey. To each and all of them he gave a charge of clothes, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 changes of clothes. To his father he sent as follows: 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provision for his father on the journey. Then he sent his brothers away, and as they departed, he said to them, "Do not quarrel on the way." So they went up to Egypt and came to the land of Canaan to their father Jacob, and they told him, "Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt." And his heart became numb, and he did not believe them. And when they told him all the words of Joseph, which he said to them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. And Israel said, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." What do we think?
They told him the words of Joseph, but did they ever say to him, "Yeah, Dad, actually, we faked his death and sold him into slavery"? Oops. How did he end up in Egypt?
That
What
part's
if
not
Israel ever
recorded.
asked? Hey, wait a minute. How did he get there?
Well, it's like with everything, right? You have good, better, best.
Yeah.
Right? You have the good thing, you have something that's better, then you have the best thing. Okay? I think people talk about that when you go out to restaurants. Like what are you going to eat? There's a good thing that you can have, there's a better thing that you can have, and the best thing is probably a salad with meat on it. Most of
No,
us-
meat with the fat.
Most of us don't choose that. We want the burger and the fries, right? So, which can still sustain you, but it's maybe not the best option. So, the best option would have been to tell the truth, right? I'm gonna just kind of move us along here. I think in this last paragraph, again, we have that theme of life and death, right? Jacob wants to cast his soul down to Sheol. He's in the depths of despair. He wants to die. And once he sees all of the things that Joseph has done for him, his spirit is revived. His soul is made alive again. I mean, Jacob's kind of been in a funk for what? 10 chapters now? 9 chapters? And the first thing that gets him out of his funk is to see that Joseph is going to provide for them in the family.
One son made good.
Yeah. All the rest of them are just whatever. At least that's why you gotta have 12, right? Because at least one of them will turn out well. Right? That's good. I like that. All right, let's do chapter 46. This is gonna be a lot. Okay. So Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba, which is in southern Israel, and offered sacrifices to God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in visions at night and said, "Jacob, Jacob." He said, "Here I am." Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I also will bring you up again, and Joseph's hand shall close your eyes. Then Jacob set out from Beersheba. The sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, their little ones and their wives, and the wagons that Pharaoh had sent to carry them. They also took their livestock and their goods, which they had gained in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt. Jacob and all of his offspring with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his offspring that he brought with him into Egypt. So now we got the daughters, right? So now we have Dinah included in all this. So now these are the names of the descendants of Israel who came into Egypt. Jacob and his sons. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and the sons of Reuben, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of the Canaanite woman. And the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kathath, and Merari. The sons of Judah, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. And the sons of Issachar, Tola, Puvla, Yob, and Simran. The sons of Zebulun, Sered, Elon, and Yaleel. And these are the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, together with his daughter Dinah. Altogether his sons and his daughters numbered 33. The sons of Gad, Ziphion, Haggai, Zuni, Ezbon, Eri, Arodi, and Ereli. And the sons of Asher, Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, Beriah, and Sarah, their sister. And the sons of Beriah, Haber, and Melchiel. These are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter, and she bore to Jacob 16 persons. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin. And Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On, bore to him. And the sons of Benjamin, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Eli, Rosh, Mupim, Hupim, and Ard. And these are the sons of Rachel who were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all. And the son of Dan, Husham. The sons of Naphtali, Yaziel, Guni, Jezer, and Sileam. And these are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to Rachel, his daughter, and these she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. All the persons belonging to Jacob who came into Egypt were his own descendants, not including Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2, and all the persons in the house of Jacob who came into Egypt were 70. So it's a long list of people. They did what their father said. They did what Joseph said. They're going into Egypt now. God told him that he's going to be with him in the land of Egypt. And that is true. But it appears in Exodus chapter 1 that God didn't really hang out in Egypt, right? Because they are 400 years in slavery. So we can tackle that when we get to Exodus. Okay? So, verse 28. He had sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to show the way before him in Goshen, and they came to the land of Goshen. Then Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet Israel, his father, in Goshen. He presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said to Joseph, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive." Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and I will say to him, my brothers and my father's household, who are in the land of Canaan, have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. When Pharaoh calls you and says, 'What is your occupation?' you will say, 'Your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth even until now, both we and our fathers, in order that you may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians.'" Okay?
That's the trick.
What's the trick?
They're not a threat to Pharaoh because they're detestable shepherds. So so he's okay with them having the land and doing their thing.
Yeah, he's okay with them being out. Yeah. Good.
So Joseph didn't deceive Pharaoh,
No,
but he used the knowledge.
he's wise,
Yeah.
right? He's using his wisdom. Sheep can't graze in the desert, so they need a more fertile plain, which is going to be the Nile Delta. Okay? Good. Anything else about that chapter? There was a lot there.
Well, it seems like Joseph has given this a whole lot of thought even before he revealed himself to his brothers. Because the first thing he says to them is that he will bring them to the land of Goshen before he even talked to Pharaoh. This is a spot where he knew that they would be safe as shepherds because they really couldn't come into Egypt proper. So,
But don't you also think that, like, kind of like what you said, that this is all premeditated by Joseph, but you wonder how far back it goes, right? Like when he's telling Pharaoh the dreams and that the famine's coming, I wonder if he's thinking in the back of his mind, what is my father going to do? What are my brothers going to do? And maybe he remembers that they all come down to bow to him. Maybe even in his dream he saw himself as an Egyptian and knew that this was all going to happen. I don't know, but I can imagine that there's a lot of premeditation here of what Joseph is going to do.
And God may not have revealed that whole plan to Joseph at the beginning when he was in the pit.
Right.
When he was rescued.
Right?
But over the years and as things progress, kind of a step at a time.
Yeah. Which is how it works with us, right? We don't see how everything is going to play out right away. It takes us years, decades to figure it out. Right? Okay? So those are those chapters, okay? Chapter 47 is pretty good. Chapter 48 is probably where we'll spend most of our time next week, and that's what we'll do. Okay? So let's say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the